Hello, folks. Welcome back to Chris Wyatt Africa. This is Chris in Central Pennsylvania with my special feature guest today, who appears to have bandwidth this time around, so it looks like we're going to be okay. But award-winning filmmaker from Nigeria, David Akwara. We're going to be talking today about his upcoming film, will be released in December, I believe, called Rise. Get him into the conversation. David Akwara. I know that you're in Nigeria, but in Ghana they just say Akwaba to welcome people. So welcome to the program. You're still on mute. If you could take that off. And then, are you there? Can you hear me? I can't hear you. Oh, there it is. There must be a delay. Okay. Welcome, David. How are you?
I'm good. I'm blessed.
Well, hey, let's talk about this. You're a filmmaker, and you're an award-winning filmmaker at that. And you look to be like you're not one of those old graybeards there. So you've got some success early in life here. Congratulations on that. This film that we're talking about is about the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. Is that correct?
Yeah, you're very correct. Go on.
So what exactly is it about? Is this interviews with officials, politicians, those at the African Union, the regional economic communities, people on the street, business people? Who exactly did you include? It's a documentary, yes?
So first, The Rise is a film that tell the stories of Africa. I mean, the business side of the economic part of Africa from a place of strength. Africa has always been seen as a continent that is not investment worthy, if I have to use that word, because we've not shown them the investment opportunities on the continent. So with the emergence of the African Continental Free Trade Area that allows 1.3 billion people to integrate into one single market, we saw it as a huge opportunity, and we're creating film. We're creating our documentary around it to see that first, a lot of people need to know that there's something called one single market that Africa has, and then there has to be a line between who benefits from it. Is it for only the SMEs? Is it for only the policymakers? Is it for only the big corporation? So we are basically bringing to light everybody who is a player, active player in the conversation on trade. And we're using film because it's one of the engaging platform for people to see what's going on the continent. And then film is our tools to reaching out to a lot of people and creating the awareness. For us, first is people need to know that there is a market that is available that has the capacity to move 70% of Africans out of poverty because of the huge opportunity that comes with trading amongst ourselves and going into industrialization so that we are able to meet the needs, our everyday needs, and then expand and compete with other continents. So we had conversations with SMEs, had conversations with policymakers, we had conversation with people at the AfCFTA Secretariat, the African Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat, so that we can bring a balance to know where the Secretariat is with their agreement in terms of policy, in terms of implementation. SMEs, what are their challenges and how they think that the Secretariat will be able to basically letting the Secretariat know what their challenges are in terms of trading, and then policymakers who create this policy to be able to write for us to have like a back and forth and say, okay, this has to be solved so that this can this can be right with. I don't know what's happening to me today, but I hope that as the conversations goes on, I'll be able to
no, you're
properly
fine.
explain
you're fine. Let's just unpack that a little bit, okay? So you met with people, small and medium-sized business owners. You've met with policymakers. You've met with the Secretariat. Now, where's the Secretariat at for the African Continental Free Trade Agreement? Is it in Addis Ababa or is it somewhere else?
It's in Accra, Ghana.
Okay.
Accra, Ghana, yeah.
So that's a good question to ask, isn't it? It's located in West Africa, not over there in East Africa where the African Union's at. So you've been to Accra to talk to these policymakers and those who work in the Secretariat. Obviously, my presumption is you've met with business leaders in Nigeria. Have you had a chance to go to any other countries to interview people for this film?
I think I lost you.
Yes, I'll say it again. So you've been to Accra. You've obviously probably talked to business leaders inside of Nigeria. Have you had an opportunity to travel other countries for the film? And where have you gone?
Okay. Free Coast and went to Ghana.
You got broken up that time. I heard Ivory Coast and Ghana. Was there somewhere else?
Yes, Cameroon.
Okay. Thank you. Cameroon. Okay, so Cameroon, Nigeria, Ivory Coast, and Cote d'Ivoire. So a focus on West Africa. Now, the film itself, documentaries are anywhere from 10 minutes to 3 or 4 hours long. How long is this, The Rise? Is it what sort of film length is it?
So The Rise is a 15 minutes documentary. First, establishes the history of trade and how some of our founding fathers were interested in a united Africa, in that sense, that we have one common market. So it runs through till 15 that we have done so far.
So you start with the early history. When you say early history, you're talking about the post-independence early history with like Kwame Nkrumah, Sekou Touré, Patrice Lumumba pushing for Pan-Africanism, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
one of the
Go ahead.
Yes. So one of the things that struck me when I was doing the research was the speech Kwame Nkrumah made when he said, until a country is economically free, that's when the country is free. So economic independence is key, not just political independence. Independence to political independence. And that's where we say that a country is truly independent in that sense. And, that's the driving force behind how we started the film and establishing how will I call it, establishing post-independence, and how these men have been clamoring for a united market so that we can grow the economy and compete with other continents as it were.
So what inspired you to focus on a film about the African Continental Free Trade Agreement? There's a lot of press about the agreement, a lot of people promoting it, a number of discussions about it. What made you interested in doing this documentary?
Okay, as a young man living in Africa and sometimes traveling within the continent, it's easy to see and feel the pain that we are, the pain and the stage of growth that of growth of the continent, and then looking at what the African Union described as Agenda 2063, that in 2063 the continent will be a lot united by different programs that they've put in place, and the African Continental Free Trade Area is one of those important part of the agenda. I saw that with research, right? If this is implemented, we are dealing with a fundamental issue that we have, and fundamental issue is we as Africans are not able to produce what we eat, what we use. And basically what we eat and what we use, and these are everyday needs. It's shameful and painful that we still import a lot of things from other continents. I don't mean that we do not have to import, right? Because we also want to sell to other continents, but we cannot be importing 70% to 80% of all the things that we consume, and at the long run we're weakening the value of our currency. So I saw that, with this agreement, knowing that for you to even trade on this market, your goods has to be made in Africa. It has to be made in Africa. So if it's not made in Africa, you are not trading, and that gives room for serious industrialization and creating of employment. Because again, we have huge employment issues. So if there are value addition companies that add values to the vast natural resources that God has blessed Africa with, we are tackling unemployment, and we are not growing our economy to compete with other people around the world. I want to see that, when I go to New York, for example, and I go to the mall, I'll be able to see made in African things on their shelf. The same way we have the same. We see a lot of made in China, made in America on the shelf of our malls in Africa. It should be about the same. So I think for me that was the driving force. That, oh man, this is an opportunity for us to redefine our economic independence. This is an opportunity for us to even define where we are as a people, to create what we would use and use what we will create, and also have an opportunity to compete with other economies. And I have to put this out there also. This was not just a desire from me. I was also inspired. So I'm a Christian, so I was also inspired because I prayed about it, and I was inspired to get on this journey, that this is a noble path that I should go. So it's both an inspiration from my God, and then doing research about the importance that this would have on the economic growth of my continent. So that's basically the foundation and the inspiration behind this. Even though we started as a how do they say it now? Self-funded, because we weren't funded by any organizations to get to where we are now. So those two things were the driving force to just get on, because of the long-term impact that we see the intra-African trade would have on the entire continent.
So when a filmmaker makes a documentary, I would imagine, since I've never made a documentary, I've recorded television and I've done stage, but I've never recorded a documentary as such. I would imagine for a documentary, it involves a lot of research on the part of the producer and the filmmaker. You've got to do research so that you're asking the right people, you're getting the right scenery, you're introducing the right material to captivate your audience and draw them in to hear the story. So in the research for this film, for The Rise, was there something you discovered, either talking to officials or business people or places that you went, something that was really surprised you? Like, oh, I didn't know that. That's fascinating. What an interesting topic. Was there anything like that you discovered? I can imagine something had to be unique that maybe you weren't aware of.
Okay, I think one of the things I wasn't aware of was the arable land that we have in Africa. In my research and my conversation, especially with the chief of staff to the AfCFTA secretariat, he mentioned that, and I went to do my research. I realized that we have not used up to 70% of the arable land in Africa. And by that research, I think it was also done by African Development Bank. We have the capacity as a people, as a continent, to feed the entire world. So that was fascinating for me. That here we have land. I mean, land that has not been used. If we use the land that we have available, we'll be able to feed the entire world with the vast land that we had. That was, I began to really pay attention to agriculture, and I know that in the next 1-2 years I'll have my farm and be part of the food supply chain to the world.
No, that's a great discovery. And in fact, a lot of people don't realize how much arable land is not in utilization across Africa. What you hear about instead is desertification, the Sahel expanding, starving Ethiopians, a lack of water in South Africa and Namibia, all of which, well, not the starving Ethiopians, but the rest of it's all true. But it does put things in perspective when people don't realize how much arable land there is. But the thing is, it's very uneven, David. It's very uneven. So, for instance, South Africa's entire surface area, only 12% of the land is arable. Not 70% or 100%, only 12%. And the South African government wants to put 1 million Africans on the farms and break it into small parcels. And in fact, what you're talking about, the 70%, that's not going to be able to feed the world unless it's a highly industrialized, highly mechanized, and highly efficient sort of farming. It can employ millions of people, but not hundreds of millions of people. So that is an interesting thing to discover. Was there anything else, or was there something in the film that you thought you knew and you found out that maybe there's more to the story than I realized? Was there any topic like that?
So for me, it's about the ease of trading within the continent. I mean, the borders. I thought that because I travel a lot by air, so I don't know the hazard that happens on the borders and how uneasy it is to really trade.
Oh,
and also, I also had an opportunity.
What you mean is the difficulty of trading across borders. It's
difficulty,
difficult.
Yes. The difficulty to just move within especially with West Africa where I'm from. I saw how it was tough. And again, in East Africa, they were not having solution to this border issue. So it was a twist for me, knowing that, okay, in West Africa, it's tough to really move, but in East Africa, it's a bit easier. In Southern Africa, it's a lot easier. They now introduce what they call one border post, So in the border of Nigeria, for example, we would have both Benin Republic and Nigeria on one border, on one side. So when you do all the clearance from the Nigerian side, you are done with the Benin Republic side. So you can then move past Benin Republic. When you are coming back to Nigeria, you would be in Benin Republic side and you do all the documentation and you would pass. So for me, that was even fascinating, knowing that, okay, in other regions, we are having, there's not ease of movement. So West Africa can also, buy into such an idea. And, in general, the AfCFTA countries who have ratified the agreement can look at these countries that are implementing the one border post and do the same in their region. And, it will really ease the movement of goods, of people, and even services.
But the case of what you're talking about, that's not a consequence of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. It's actually, but you're tell me what you learned. That's a consequence of ECOWAS and their efforts to reduce borders, setting an example potentially for the rest of the continent. I think that's your point, is that you discovered that it's actually difficult in a lot of places across borders. It's a real challenge. In some countries, you can have trucks set there for days or weeks trying to get through customs and immigration, just trying to get from one side to the other. Even though it's in ECOWAS, I remember when I crossed the border from Ghana to Togo, you sit there for hours or days unless you're willing to pay someone a bribe. And I had a diplomatic passport, and they still wanted me to pay a bribe to get through the border crossing. That makes it a real challenge. Now, when you spoke to those folks about agriculture, did any of them talk about the impact or influence of foreign investors coming in? For instance, in Tanzania, the Chinese have leased 100,000 hectare farms to do industrialized farming. Did that ever come up, or what about the topic of land tenure? Did anyone you discussed talk about the challenges of land tenure? For instance, in Ghana, it's difficult to get free title to the ownership of the land, and it typically belongs to the headman or chief, and that person can decide that, well, I don't like you anymore. You can't farm here. That land is not yours. Did the topic of land tenure come up in your conversations?
No, not at all. One of the things that land taking didn't come up in the conversation, but one of the things that SMEs who owns land and are trading, they also complain about the fact that it is hard for them as SMEs or as even business people to do business, to move around the continent. But it's easier for foreigners who acquire land to really move within the continent. And that's one of the fundamental issues I was talking about when in one of my interviews, that love is key. We as Africans need to see ourselves as one. So we don't have to treat another race over ourselves. I don't mean that we should disrespect another race, but here, when an African is dealing with an African, let love be the order. So the reason why it is hard for us to move or move within the continent, it's basically on healthy competition, on healthy rivalry, and you don't do that with the other foreign counterparts. The foreign counterpart come to your country, acquire land, and is able to move his goods within the country and outside the country. But if another foreign African acquire land, it's hard to even acquire the land, not to say, move the goods within the countries. So it is important that we as Africans need to understand that for trade to even strive, there's a fundamental challenge, and that challenge is love. seeing ourselves as first brothers. So no matter what we're competing, no matter how the competition is, the fact that we're brothers first should come in, so that we would make decisions based on, okay, this is my brother, and it is good to see my brother grow, because I want to do the same thing. So if you come to my country as a Tanzania, I should be able to welcome you and allow you grow in Nigeria. If I go to Tanzania, that should be the same. Not that, oh, we allow people foreigners coming to our continent without even money. Sometimes they would collect loans from our banks, they will do business, they will go with the money from the business, and we that have, we do not benefit in that sense. So when they complain about, it's easy for foreigners to get into a particular industry and grow than African getting into those industry and grow about the same pace with their foreign counterpart that come to the continent.
So this is not your first film. What inspired you to become a filmmaker? I imagine that's not an easy decision. It's not like high school prepares one to be a filmmaker. I suppose some universities have programs like that. But what kind of got you into this?
Okay, I wanted to be a lawyer. I've said that a lot of times, and the sort of lawyer I wanted to be was one that advocates. I know that if I was studying law or practicing law, as it were, I would be a human rights lawyer. Speaking for people, trying to be. I don't want to say messiah, but trying to advocate for a better society from a legal point of view. So when I saw that with film, I'll be able to speak to different issues. That inspired me greatly. Again, like the rise that everybody's talking about, the rise that was premiering in a few weeks from now. These are one of the things I wanted to do. Use film as a tool to give give hope. One, use film as a tool to inspire people to do more and do great things. I know that there are lots of people who get into different things for different reasons. But for me, I saw film as an opportunity to contribute to the advancement of the world. So that's why most of the projects that I have done, they are always, I don't know if this is the right word. They are always purpose driven. It doesn't have it has huge lessons for people to learn, for people to just use as a tool to live where they are into the next phase of their lives. So I see myself as one who would give support system to a lot of people, and film affords me such opportunity. I can dive into different topics. I know that next time you hear that I'm doing stuff about the airspace in Africa, and how I think that we should reduce the cost of traveling within the continent as compared to what it is now. So I'm going to make a film in that direction and look at what are the ways to even reduce the cost of air tickets within the continent of Africa. Because of film, I'll be able to dive into some of these pending issues that we have and start a conversation. Because for me, filmmaking is a conversation starter. If you watch my film, it should be able to start a conversation and see how that conversation will lead to certain solution and certain resolve. So that's the thing. That's the entire. That's the thing that inspire me and get me even going when I think of the art and where I am. I know I'm not making a lot of money yet, but it's fulfilling to just be one who tries to contribute his quota to the development of the world and Africa first, before we spread to the entire world.
Well, that brings to mind a question, a very important question, I think, is that you mentioned at the moment you're obviously not like Dino De Laurentiis making the big bucks or something like that as a filmmaker, particularly from documentary films, but you were talking about becoming a lawyer. Now, not to I don't know if your parents are still around, but if the question is, if in fact you were intent on becoming a lawyer, I don't know what your parents hope for you, but were they excited about you being a lawyer? And what happened when you decided to be a filmmaker? Did that become a conversation that was awkward, or were they supporting you?
So, my father wanted me to be a lawyer. I mean, in Africa, law is one of those noble profession. When you tell people that, oh, my son is a lawyer, they give you a certain respect because they know that you can't mess with the family. And I think that I had tendency of becoming a great lawyer because I know how to argue, I know how to engage in conversation. So my parents felt like, man, law is the thing for you. And when I told them that I'm not going to do law, it wasn't a comfortable decision. But again, I have family that, you know, they believe that people should be able to make decisions for themselves when they get to a certain level. My parents believe that for how they've grown me, I should be able to know what I can do long term, because they also don't want to be responsible for them making decisions for me and now coming back to them and say, oh, you are the one that made these decisions for me. So they were clear on that we do not want to make a decision for you, but we wish that, you know, you'll be a lawyer and stuff. But since you said that you're going to do film, we don't know how that would go because it looked like a very playful department or playful profession, not so serious in that sense. So there was a back and forth and say, oh, we would give you our love and support, but know that law is what we really want for you. You know, but again, I had their support. So just even allowing me to go to school and study it, and then when coming back to graduating from school, and then them even buying me equipment to start what, you know, I have always wanted to do, you know, was amazing. But I told my father when he was alive that I was going to study law and, you know, just make him proud, just make him smile because he always wanted a lawyer. But now that he's gone, you know, I'm not sure I'm going to study it anymore, man.
Oh, so
your
father's passed on then?
Yes. He passed on last year.
My condolence. He passed on when?
Yes, he did.
Did you say last week?
Last year.
Oh, last week. Well, still that's fresh. Yeah, my mother passed away last year. My
condolences. No, last year, like last year, January 18th, 2020.
No, my condolences. My mother also passed away almost a year ago. So, very difficult situation to lose a family member. So, anyway, that's you know, it's so condolences. It's interesting though that your family did support you in this. So, as you decided to do this, what did you need? I mean, I imagine you need some sort of equipment. You know, you mentioned equipment. You've got to have cameras. I mean, you can do it on a mobile phone, but I suspect that it's not quite the same using a mobile phone to become a filmmaker as it is to, you know, actually use a professional camera. So that stuff's not cheap. It's not cheap in the West, and it's certainly not cheap in Africa. So there's got to be some initial investment you put into this. And I don't know, maybe you could be an avant-garde filmmaker with a mobile phone and do little, you know, moving around stuff. But if you're doing a proper documentary, it takes some time and effort. Did you have to raise funds to get the equipment in order to do this, or how did you make that happen?
Okay, so my father bought the camera that he could afford, but you know, the camera can't do exactly what we wanted it to do. Mm-hmm. So we couldn't even sell it because the value of the money will not be able to get the camera that we want. Mm-hmm. So what I did at the time was I have a very dear friend. I feel bad about, you know, saying it now because I have not fulfilled completely, you know, some of the things I want to do with him. You know, his name is Solomon Abbey. He gave me a camera and I made part payments. You know, so I was working with the camera and then I was refunding. You know, I was working with the camera. So I think he was the one that just came through for me because at the time I got the project that you know, I can't afford to rent cameras. You know, when you're doing documentaries, you shoot for 5 weeks. You know, it's a long process. So he gave me a camera for. Are you there?
I'm here.
Oh, okay. So in partly, and that's how, you know, I started doing projects, raised money to buy lights, you know, for what I'm using. I mean, the camera was what I used for the rise, you know. So
okay, excellent.
He was the angel.
All right. Well,
came into my life at the time.
I guess he's kind of your angel investor then to help you out and get started. That's good.
Exactly.
Well, people that don't make films and don't do television and broadcast don't realize that it's a lot more complicated than simply having just a camera. Like you mentioned, you got to have lights. Like I have studio lights here. Otherwise, if you don't have the lights, it kind of looks like this, you know. So look at that. That's not good for unless you're making a horror film. So we turn the other one off. Then now it's terrible. My microphone looks lovely, but you can't see me anymore. So you got to have these lights. And you got to have good quality ones too, because so I could change this around to, let's see, we'll do the warm. Okay, look at that. That's a very different look. Let's do the warm over here. And suddenly that's a very different. But I don't like those lights because they distract me. They're weird on the side. So I go back to the cold, and here's the cold. And there you go. We're back. And it's kind of a blue tint to it. And it's all part of filmmaking, isn't it? You have to have the right lighting. You've got to have the right angles. Sometimes you're interviewing somebody, and you don't want head on like we're doing. You want the camera to be off to the side so it looks like you're talking. They're talking here, but you capture it this way for effect, and it can be very effective. Particularly if you use a graphic, you put something up with statistics or on the side there. You want to have people talking like this. So these techniques for filming, did you self-teach yourself that, or did you find a book to how to make a movie, or is it just trial and error?
So it's in two ways, right? The school I went to, was practical driven. So when we're done with class, they'll tell you these that you have read in this book, it's time to practicalize it. So that was the first foundation. And when I left school, I started experimenting. I didn't start with documents. I was making short films. I think I did like 4 to 5 short films that were experimental, before I got into documentary. And I'm sure that I'm not going back to film soon, because I fell in love with, documentary and the real life. So it was both, school giving me the foundation, and then coming back and experimenting with the first 4 films that I made before, going into documentary full time. So that's how I improved. And of course, if you are in any craft, there are daily upgrades. So the internet, YouTube has been my very good friend in that regard to, upgrade with what's happening, and then also have conversation with people who are way ahead of me. Look at what you're doing, because I remember that there was one techniques I learned because I was just around certain filmmakers who were doing it better. When I saw that, I'm like, wow. And I put that in one of my films, 40 Years in Memory. That's the name of the film. And when people saw that, they were like, wow. So it's again school, doing practical experiment with my money and with with my personal project, and then staying around people who are getting it right, and then using YouTube as one of my tools. So my light has gone off. That's why.
So, there's something that's, interesting about technology, always changing, always advancing. It brings the cost down of electronics, of cameras, of other things repeatedly. There's a super chat from Patrick giving you a thumbs up. He likes the conversation. Thank you for the super chat, Patrick. So one of the things that's interesting that I think from a filmmaking standpoint, and I'm going to get your thoughts on this, is that there's been something revolutionary, I think, groundbreaking. Back in the day, when I was probably your age, if you wanted aerial shots, you had to hire a plane or you had to use a helicopter. And who has money for that? Now, for just $100 or maybe a little bit more, you can buy a drone and equipped with it, the really good ones are going to cost you several $100s, but with incredible high definition camera, you can actually live stream it down to your device on the ground, or you can simply record it and upload later on. So have you thought about it, or have you used drones? And I realize that for your documentary, you interview a lot of people, but I don't know, for instance, you might want to show a port, talk about ports and the impact. And for that, you might want to have an elevated view and go up. But even if you're not looking from above, drones can also be good angles from, slightly above and from behind. Have you considered using drones, or have you used them in your filmmaking yet? And what do you think of the use of drones? Do you think it's a good idea? I think it's a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
Are you there?
Yeah, I think that was one of the improvements in filmmaking that made it easy for some of us to experiment. Really, you can't see the beauty of a place until you get an overhead view of the environment. So we used, I love drones. So I'm not sure I've made any documentary that I didn't use drone because I want people to see the area view of how these places look like. For example, the AfCFTA Secretariat, where we call African Trade House, I had a drone shot to establish how it looks, so that people who have not been to Accra, people who have not been to the Secretariat would have an idea of how it looks, the environment where the Secretariat is. I see drone as one of the gifts to even Africa, because when we look at the arable land that we talked about earlier on, drone is the best tool to show how vast these places are and how untapped also these lands are, so that people can now see that, okay, we can invest massively in agriculture. And so for me, drone has been a blessing to showing the beauty, to showing also the weakness, because again, when you want to see how devastated an environment is, the drone would show you perfectly how it looks. The same way when you want to look at how beautiful a city is, the drone. I mean, if you look at Rwanda, for example, a lot of drone shots, when you see the drone shot of Rwanda, you just want to go to Rwanda because it looks so beautiful and enticing. And I think that filmmakers needs to explore the use of drones, and also be thankful for people who produce it, and also inspire, people who are in the tech industry to create other solutions that would ease, filmmaking. I'll give an example. I don't know how they are going to do it here. The recording space for 4K, when you're recording to high definition 4K resolution, it takes a lot of space. It will be nice, right, that with less space you can record more. Same way, the drone has replaced the helicopters that we were using to take area view. With that, we can just ease things, because the life is getting even tougher as we go on. So our tech guys, those in Africa especially, we should be thinking of solutions, that would ease life for filmmakers, because our industry is so capital intensive. And I don't know if people do not know, because when they call us for project, they just feel like it is easy. Our equipment is pretty and so expensive. So if we have tech guys who are going to reduce these cost of equipment in terms of creating solutions that will be easily accessed, and it doesn't require so much resources. I mean, I think the world will be moving forward. And just to mention this before I let you come in, I feel like we that are in the film industry have not benefited a lot from tech in regards of cost of buying equipment. I don't know how much your mic is, but I know it is pretty expensive. It's not cheap. So people who want to do vlog, they're afraid of doing vlog because getting a proper setup is not an easy feat. So I think that these tech guys should create solutions that will make life easy for filmmakers and make filmmakers stay in business, because when it's so expensive, people would not want to come into it, because they may not be able to survive the.
No, I got you.
I hope that's.
No, you're right. This is actually quite an expensive microphone, but I'm frugal, or you could say cheap. I don't like to pay full price. So I found this microphone, and I put it in the basket when it was $270. And I forgot about it, and I ignored it because I'm not going to pay $270 for this microphone. And then it dropped in price, and I happened to check, and it was only a little over $100. And so I purchased it then. Still expensive, but I'm too cheap to pay $300 for it. But it's a very good quality microphone. What I really like about it is that it lights up when the microphone is active, so I can do this, and it's silent. Put it back on by just touching it. It's quite a good microphone. It's got, of course, the range from 360, so you can have an interview, or you can just direct side to side. You can also fan it towards yourself. It's quite a nice thing. But yeah, technology definitely is a good way to level the playing field. But let me ask you this question about documentaries, because there's all kinds of documentary filmmakers. You got people that do wildlife documentaries. You got people who do travel documentaries. You've got investigative journalists who like to do undercover documentaries. have you done different types, or do you intend to expand out? Like, I mean, can we see one day a groundbreaking expose from David Akwara exposing corruption and fraud, from having undercover people going with hidden microphones in to listen and talk to officials and try to catch them in bribery? Is that something you'll try to do one day, or what direction do you think you'll take your career for documentaries from this point forward? Another break up there in his connection. Your microphone is quiet. Well, I think there's like a delay in this thing. Can you hear me? I can see him moving, but I don't hear anything. David, can you hear me? This is really weird. It's like we're in different alternate timelines here or something. That's weird. Yeah, I don't think you can hear me anymore. I can't hear you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I can't hear you. That's weird. So I think he's trying to his bandwidth. Take your camera off. If you take your camera off, maybe there'll be enough bandwidth for just the audio. Can you do that? Just take your camera off. Turn the camera off, and then it'll take less data. Now you've taken the microphone off, but you've not taken the camera off. Okay, the microphone's back on, but I don't hear you. So turn the camera off. Can you? Is it possible to turn the camera off? So we've run into a bandwidth issue again here with David. The good news is we've gotten a good ways through this interview. I'm not hearing you at all, David. Hopefully you're hearing me. But I'm just sharing with my audience that we've got bandwidth connections there. He's in Lagos. I thought that we'd maybe solve these issues, but we've had challenges throughout, and it looks like now his microphone has gone silent, even though it's turned on. So he's just sent me a message. Let me see what the message is. So you can or you can't? Can or cannot. So my microphone, is it still on or is it off? My microphone's still on. My audience can hear me. So somebody in my audience, please give me a thumbs up that you're still hearing me. I can see that it's broadcasting. David can or cannot. So anyway, is somebody in the audience give me a heads up, thumbs up, something there? Anybody? Are we still online? Okay, Tony. Yeah, my sound is good. The audience can hear me. Yeah, okay. Okay, so the audience can hear me, but I cannot hear David. Okay, so what I'm going to suggest is that he's frustrated. Turn. All right, we're going to wind up. Try that. And if he turns off his camera, then maybe we'll be able to hear him. Okay, so, okay. David, are you there? Okay, didn't work. I'm telling you to try leaving the meeting and come back, okay? Sorry, folks, but this is Nigeria. Well, we've had folks from Nigeria. Okay. He got it. He's going to try to come back. So I'll hold on for a couple minutes, and hopefully David will be back. But, folks, you're listening to an interview with David Akwara, an award-winning filmmaker from Nigeria. He's made this film called The Rise, and The Rise is a film about the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. There's the promotional banner. This film is due to be released on the 2nd of December, and he's doing it in Nigeria. It'll be shown in Abuja. So the theme is working together towards the Africa we want. It's called The Rise. This is a film coming up talking about the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. So if we can get him back on here in a few minutes, we'll do that. But if not, then we'll wrap up this stream. Just give him a few minutes to try to get back in. He's experiencing some difficulties there. Thank you for my audience for letting me know that you guys can hear me. I appreciate that. Sometimes I need that because I don't know what's reaching the audience. Okay, he's going to try to come back in. Let's see if we got him. Okay. Right. So he's trying to connect now, and okay, I can see his microphone is connected and his camera's off. David, are you there? Can you hear me? I can hear you. I can hear you. David, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. So the question I asked you before we ran into difficulty there was, the question was, will we see you in the future doing different kind of documentaries, like, I don't know, like undercover investigative, journalism, or a documentary where corrupt officials are involved? We'll have someone with a hidden microphone. Will that be the future, or will you do wildlife documentaries, or will you do travel? What kind of documentaries do you anticipate doing in the future? What would you like to go after next?
Okay, I would like to do that, but not now. Right? Not now because sorry. Yeah, but I would like to do like an undercover, to, because again we'll be revealing a lot of things that have been hindering growth. Because that's a very serious solution that we're offering. But for now, I'll be focused on, the next 5 years, I'll be focused on projects that amplifies growth on the continent. Projects that amplifies growth for the continent. So, say what I mentioned earlier about the aviation industry. I want to know why it is so expensive to move within the continent, and then let's start a conversation around it. So I'll make a documentary and we'll begin a conversation around why is this thing so expensive. How do we begin the conversation to see that we're able to ease the movement of people on air and make it really cheaper? So I don't have to spend over $300 to $400 just buying a one-way ticket to Rwanda. All right. So the next 5 to 10 years, I'll be focused on creating content that are development driven. So, but maybe later, because with it like a 10 years experience in doing project that gears towards development, I will have a lot of information to take over or take up an investigating project where I want to investigate what is the root of corruption. But for now, that's not one of the things I'm considering. But in long term, I'm looking at it because I want to be a filmmaker that will be remembered for telling important stories that led to greatness, not telling important story that leads to shame or to anything negative. I want to be known for being a change maker. So if doing investigative projects would make that happen, of course, yes. But for now, it's not something I'm considering to do. But for developmental projects, yes, I want to even work with NGO to see that some of these monies that are made available for certain things get to the actual people. So maybe that's the sort of investigating documentary I'm going to do. When we say they gave $50 billion for this, $50 billion for this, $1 billion for this, I should be able to follow through. And people who are supposed to benefit from it, I would make a film that put them on the forefront, say, oh, you are the reason why these monies were made available, and we want to use our film to give you a voice so that people can see that there are people who need to benefit. I was telling somebody about the Continental Free Trade Area, our long-term plan. We want to go back to people that we interviewed in 2021, like in 10 years later, and ask them, did you benefit from the AfCFTA? We want to have their real life testimonies. So when we match them 10 years later with what how it was before and how it is now, we were able to see that, oh, this thing actually went through. I know people who benefited from intra-African trade, because it will not be, growth cannot happen if we do not have testimonies of people actually benefiting from different processes. So I think that it's even in two ways. I'll be doing investigative, but not directly, to politicians, So if there's a policy that benefit people, I'll make film that put lights on it and see how people certain people at the grassroots level can benefit from whatever policy or whatever agenda or whatever story idea that I'm building with my incredible team members.
Well, there's always lots of topics out there. I have a friend. No, I'm hearing an echo. That's weird. didn't hear that the whole time. But I have a friend who's a filmmaker. He's an actor, Eric Bello. He's a professional photographer. He's a professional actor. He's appeared in television series and movies. Some people would actually recognize him if they saw him. He's had some parts, but he's also a filmmaker. He's currently making a documentary about the Swiss Guard. That's the guard force that defend the Pope in Rome. Fascinating topic, and he's trying to raise money for his film, so he just started a merchandise line rather than try to get people to loan him money. He thought he'd sell merchandise from his film production company. So I'll touch base with Eric. He'll be coming on my program soon. You might want to watch that stream when it comes up if you have a chance, but he'll be coming up sometime soon. He was on my channel last year. He went out last year to Wyoming with us. They asked him to come out and record and film the experience of veterans, combat veterans who were out there on a trip. And so I was one of those veterans, and so I got to meet him. He's a really wonderful man, great guy, pretty good actor, and actually helped him rehearse his lines to get a part, and he got the part. Wow. While we were in the mountains out there in Wyoming, he needed to rehearse, so I was there to read the script so he could respond, and film it. It was pretty cool. It's pretty cool. But it's I'm sure he has some good ideas for filmmaking, but there's lots of ground out there. I mean, just some ideas that come to mind would be Nigeria's palm oil industry. Is it a net positive or a negative for Nigeria? And why are Nigerians importing palm oil from Indonesia when they can grow it in Nigeria? That might be a good documentary. Another might be to look back at the Sani Abacha era and look at the horrific abuses, human rights abuses, and the impact it had on modern Nigeria. Just a couple ideas, and maybe what's left of Nigeria's natural wildlife. Countries like Niger still have wildlife like elephants and lions, but they're endangered. What about there's lots of ideas out there. But let me ask this before we wrap up, David. I want to. The film is debuting on the 2nd of December or the 7th, something like that, in Abuja, correct?
Yes, 2nd of December in Abuja. Yes.
Okay, so will the film be put into circulation or will it be available online somewhere after that? Because most of us won't be able to get to Abuja to watch the film. So where can we see it, or will we be able to see The Rise after it debuts?
So it's both a physical and a virtual event. So when the film is showing live, physically, it's also going to be showing virtually. So on our YouTube channel, you'll be able to watch the film in real time. So we're setting the time at the same time the time we're setting for the physical premiere. That's the same time it's screening online, so people can watch. Because we want to have, for us, it's not even about watching the film. We want to have the conversation, right? So our online audience are very important to this conversation. So when they are done watching the film, we would move them to the conversation proper. And even topics that we didn't put that didn't make it to the documentary. Questions from SMEs, because it's an SME meets policymakers sort of panel. So we're putting everybody on one panel. SME, tell us what your challenges are. Policymakers, tell us what you think are the challenges of SMEs, and let's find a middle ground. And what is the implementation plan? We know that the African Continental Free Trade area is young. It's not even up to a year, so we're not also rushing them in the process. But we need them to also tell us where we are with their agreement, what has been the growth that has been recorded so far, and how can people also plug into this. So yeah, it's gonna be live, and everybody can see it on the 2nd. I'm sure that by 4 p.m. GMT, it will be showing online while we're having the physical premiere in Abuja.
Okay, well, I just put the link into your channel. It's also in the description of this video below this. Anybody that comes across the video after this would like to find out where David Akwara's video is going to premiere. We can watch it live on YouTube on the 2nd of December for those who are interested in this film, The Rise, about the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, its impact, its potential, and where Africa is going. So, David, any last words before we wrap up? Thank you. We still had some technical difficulties, but it looks like this was a lot better than last time. At least we're able to do the interview. People really enjoyed your infectious smile. But any thoughts you'd like to share with the audience before we wrap up?
Okay. Yeah. I want to. Is it an appeal? Because our documentary is in five phases. So it's a regional project. We're moving from region to region. We're canvassing for support. We've gotten to a point where our passion can take us to. Now is the time to get people to come on board to see that the actualization of this continental film happen. We see the importance. We want to get the perspective from Southern Africa, the perspective from Eastern Africa, the perspective from West. I'm sorry, we already have West, from Central, from North, and then the diaspora. So if there's anything I want to say, it's we need people to come on board to join us in this journey. David Akwara Films cannot do it alone. We have been able to do West Africa, even if we didn't even document all the countries in West Africa. But this is the point where we need people to come together, and join us tell this story. It's not a David Akwara story; it's an African story told by an African from an African perspective. So that may just be my last word to everyone hearing and listening to us now.
Well, David, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Best of luck on the debut of the film. I'm looking forward to watching it. I'll have to check the time to see if I'll be able to watch it when it's live. But even if it's not live, I'll definitely go watch it and give you some viewership. On folks, you can go to his channel and become a subscriber, and then select the notifications, and you'll know when the films come up, or just check on the channel there. Also, I'll promote the film throughout the broadcast coming up between now and the 6th. We've got a whole month here. I'll periodically put up the banner so that people will be aware of the film, and I'll mention it as we go forward so people can go there. And hopefully folks get over there. So obviously David's very happy about that I'm going to promote the film. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So David, I'd like to just very quickly say thank you very much for coming on, and thanks for your patience, because both of us were frustrated by the internet last time on your end, and we were all set for the interview. We actually had I think 80 people that showed up for that stream, and then people were frustrated by the connection, and they streamed away. But no pun intended, they streamed away. But they left the conversation. So it's good to get you back on, and best of luck. Like I said, I'll keep promoting the film, and we'll let people know about it. And with that, I'm going to thank David, and I'm going to put you in the waiting room, and then I'm going to close up the stream, okay?
I hope you're back soon.
All right, cool beans. All right, folks, that's David Akwara. Let's put him in the waiting room. And there you have it. So David Akwara in Nigeria. He'll be debuting his film, The Rise, coming up on the 2nd of December. You can catch it on his YouTube channel. The links are right there in the chat for those who are watching right now. And for those watching after the fact, you can find his link below the description of this video. So go there and check it out. And you may find an interesting film. It's not a very long film, won't eat up a lot of your time. It's a 15-minute documentary about the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, a agreement that I have long commented on and said has a lot of potential, but I have a lot of reservations about its implementation, its punitive measures, its enforcement measures, its copyright protections, intellectual property, all of which is yet to be resolved. So we'll see where it goes from there. Anyway, folks, that's it for this stream. Thanks for tuning in. The news was on earlier. I did an early stream for Indaba Africa News because I covered Ireland and the Brave Blossoms, that rugby game at Aviva Stadium in Dublin. And then I'll be covering the Wales versus the Springboks. That's coming up here in a couple of hours, if the time is correct, 2 hours from now. So tune in for that. I have to reset the time on the stream over on Rugby Ascendant because it's set up for 45 minutes from now when it's actually in 2 hours. So thank you very much. But stay tuned for that on Rugby Ascendant. Take care of yourselves. Be safe out there, folks. And my thanks to my special featured guest, David Akwara. It was a pleasure having you on today. Folks, take care of yourself, and I'll catch you here next time on Chris Wyatt Africa. By the way, please check out my videos. Last night I did a video about a recent farm murder. I did a video about unequal justice in South Africa, how the justice system is applied unfairly, and gave very specific examples of the injustices taking place in South Africa, and as well as other content I put on the channel last night. It's being shadow banned by the PooTube, so please check it. One of which was my summary of the elections in South Africa. I call it whistling past the graveyard. The ANC and DA are in denial. The 2023 municipal elections in South Africa. So check it out, folks. 3 videos out there, none of which has gotten much in the way of promotion, courtesy of the PooTube. And thank you for your support, those of you who are here. I do appreciate it. And I'll catch you either on Rugby Ascendant here shortly for the Springboks versus Wales, or we'll catch you next time here on Chris Wyatt Africa. Take care of yourselves, folks. Cheers.